Right now, we're going to welcome in Kevin Minnick of NJ Advanced Media, get his take on some South Jersey high school sports. Good morning, Kevin.
Hey, Sully, how are you today?
Pretty good, man. How was your Thanksgiving?
Thanksgiving was a little different this year. You know, I didn't have a kitchen, so we had to go out for dinner. And
no kitchen? What's going on? Little remodel?
Had some damage done to my home back in March that we're finally getting just about cleared up. So still without a kitchen, but
so what was the Thanksgiving out like? I used to work a lot of Thanksgivings when I worked in restaurants, and it was always just chaos.
It was, I'll just put it this way, it was different, and it won't happen again. So it was memorable. Let's put it that way. I'm not going to forget about it, but it's much better to be at home or at a relative's home or so. But we made the best of it, and it's a couple stories that we'll have in our hip pocket.
There you go. Kevin, before we get into some football talk, I wanted to get your quick thoughts on the Gene Allen situation. We've been talking a lot about that this morning. I'm sure you've heard all about that situation and just had Mike McGarry on talking about it. As a guy who's been covering South Jersey sports for a number of years, and you've covered a lot of Atlantic City boys basketball games, Coach Allen, as well as a lot of these high school sports reporters in the area. What was your take? Were you surprised to hear on Tuesday night about what had gone down?
Absolutely. And, without knowing a lot of the details of exactly what happened, if what I've read is correct, it's an absolute disgrace. And that Board of Education needs to take a serious look in the mirror and realize that they allowed, I'm guessing that they allowed the feelings of one individual to end the career of someone who basically did it for the kids. In talking to Gene the next morning, the first thing out of his mouth was he was worried about the kids. He was concerned about the kids. He wasn't concerned about himself. He was worried about how this was going to affect those 40 kids who walked into his classroom that morning, and he had to sit and look at them and explain to them a situation probably in which he had no answer. So
right.
If in fact it became daddy ball, that's an absolute disgrace that it happened. And there should be some really upset people in Atlantic City for losing Gene. And, I know there's a rallying call out there. I know I'm thinking that people want to try to do all they can to see if they can reverse this decision. But, if that's me, I don't want to work for those people anymore. Even as though he has such incredible feelings and incredible will to help those kids, you've been slapped in the face and your pride has been slapped. And that's an absolute disaster. So, Gene said he wasn't going to coach again other than in Atlantic City. I don't know if he goes back or not, but just a really, really poor situation if, in fact, it went down the way I heard it.
The most striking thing to me, Kevin, was you hear parents talk all the time about it's about the kids, it's about the kids, it's about the kids. Did anyone ask the kids? Did anyone ask the players on the team if they still wanted Gene Allen to be their coach? I mean, that
No.
To me is a question that should be asked. I talked to a couple of former players, Flash Morgan and Ryan Fader, and they talked in glowing terms about Coach Allen, how much he meant to them as developing into young men, getting them to college. So did anyone ask the players on the team this year? I mean, that's a question that should be asked.
I doubt they did. They heard from one individual, I think, and that just, it's a shame that one individual can get in the ear of that many people and make a decision like that. When it comes down to Gene as a coach, he was a very good coach. That team had not won a state championship before Gene Allen got there. He got them 3. Gene was hard. I think he was probably hard on the kids, but he always had their best interest in mind. And parents nowadays, and then going back a few years, this whole thing about this whole thing with daddy ball and all. When you get into high school, you know what? If your kid makes the team, he's on the team. He follows the team rules. He does what the coach says. If you don't like it, he doesn't have to play, because high school sports is not a given. It's a privilege. And if you want to play, then you play. But you have to understand the circumstances and all the background that goes with it. And, Gene is the kind of guy, and, there are certain settings in South Jersey, there are certain communities where the role of a coach is so much more than X's and O's. And a lot of coaches, and I'd say the majority of coaches go above and beyond and do whatever they can for kids. But there are certain situations where going above and beyond, there are coaches that even go higher than that. And in certain communities, when kids don't have certain things and kids need help and they don't have dads in their life. And Gene's the kind of guy who would fill those type of roles. So, like I said, an absolute disgrace that he gets ousted like that. And, I hope people realize exactly how it went down.
Talking with Kevin Minnick of NJ Advanced Media. And, Kevin, you make a great point about different types of communities and how important a coach can be. And I believe it was Mike Gill earlier in the show made a great reference to the Bridgeton baseball coach, Mike, what's his last name, Villela? Is that his last name? Villela.
Right.
And how much he's meant to that program. I mean, these kids are not the kind of kids that can afford to be on high-level travel teams where you got to pay $2,500 a year. Maybe they don't have the best equipment available to them, but this guy, he's lost more than 300 games in his career. But what he's meant, aside from the wins and losses, to the kids that come up through that baseball program in Bridgeton, it's hard to measure that. And kind of similar to what Gene Allen's meant. I mean, Mike McGarry said, somebody called him and said there's been 40 players go on to play college basketball for that program under Coach Allen. So kind of shows you what he's meant to a lot of young men, being able to get an education on the next level.
Yeah, if you're someone looking to get into high school coaching right now, and the little, you kind of get an idea of what's going on, but when things like this come up, it's like, why would I want to get involved with this? Why would I want to put so much time and effort in and see this kind of result? This is the kind of thing that will turn people away from wanting to get involved and be more than an X's and O's. So, like I said, Gene has gone above and beyond. And to be quite honest with you, Sully, Gene will continue to go above and beyond, I think, because that's just the kind of guy he is. If one of those kids today needed some help somehow, some way, Gene Allen would be right there. So, that Board of Education has to really look in the mirror. And like I said, I'm sure there's some very, very upset people down in Atlantic City.
Kevin, turning our attention back to high school football, I guess you were up at the MetLife Stadium last night for the Williamstown game, and what a just heartbreaking way for that season to end for those guys. I mean, obviously they can still take home the quote unquote state championship, the South Jersey sectional, but this team, I don't know if we all expected them to have a good season, but I don't think anybody saw this coming, where they finish 10-1 and win the South Jersey championship, and really represented what Coach Fusatella is all about. This team, hard-nosed kids that are going to get after you for 48 minutes and just give you their best shot.
Yeah, I'm actually at MetLife again for today's game, and Williamstown did not come up here to just put on their uniform another time and run around. They came up here to win a football game, and that locker room was quiet when it was over. And as I wrote today online on NJ.com, is that for 12 weeks they were smiling after games, and in week 13, the unlucky 13th, they kind of don't know how to react, and they're extremely disappointed and upset that they lost this game. In the grand scheme of things, the game meant nothing. It means absolutely nothing. But when you go 12-0 for only the second time in school history, you win only your school's second sectional title, and you have to come up and play one more game. I think they were prepared to play, and they were tremendous on defense. Brandon Perkins, Aaron Lewis, Julian Gravener, they were fabulous last night. Williamstown scored the first touchdown on their second play. Wade Inge broke one for 43, and we kind of thought, oh boy, here goes another big time Williamstown win. But after that, both teams settled in. It became a defensive battle. There were some turnovers here or there, and some turnovers in the fourth quarter that you kind of thought, okay, well, Williamstown will kind of seal this one, and then it was just turned out to just be a very, very disappointing, I guess, play that Sayreville pounced on a fumble in the end zone to win it with 41 seconds left. So, obviously those kids will left here extremely disappointed. The coaching staff extremely disappointed and probably second guessing a few decisions that they had made down the stretch. But when the dust settles and the sun comes back up, those kids will realize what they were able to accomplish this year. They met their goals. They won their conference division title. They won a South Jersey title. They went 12-0, and no one can take that away from them. So, no one wants to lose their last game, but obviously in this type of situation, a tournament of champions type of situation, only one team's going to end with a W. So, but really a great season for Williamstown. I think they obviously did what their 3-year mission to come and win a championship was met. So I think the groundwork has obviously been laid, and they're a team that's going to have an awful lot of kids back next season. They'll have some significant and some key holes to fill, but a lot of those kids will be back next year. They know what it was like being up here. They know what that experience felt like to them, and they'll do everything they can to get back up here next season.
Kevin, we got about a minute left. What's the most intriguing game left on the schedule for you? We got a couple South Jersey teams in the what do you call them, bowl games or whatever, and right. Holy Spirit St. Joe in the non-public state final next Friday. Any particular game jumping out at you? What are you hoping to see this weekend and next?
Well, we got one game left today with South Jersey teams, and that's Penns Grove and Willingboro. They'll play the Group 1 bowl game at 1 o'clock. And then we come back next weekend and fill out the rest of the schedule. I think the big game tonight will be the last game. It'll be the St. Joe Montvale Bergen Catholic game. The winner will end up being the number 1 team in the state. I would have really loved to see that game be the Saturday night game next week as the culmination of this, inaugural event. But it's going to be tonight, and I think that's going to, the crowd will be here for that one. And, looking at next week, right now, Haddonfield is undefeated, and they'll be playing in that Group 2 game with Hillside. And they'll kind of carry the torch for South Jersey next week, being another undefeated team. So we'll find out next week if South Jersey can bring an undefeated team up here and walk out of here with a smile, I guess, instead of some disappointed faces.
Great stuff as always, Kev. A lot more football to go, and before we turn it over to basketball season, keep working hard, man. We appreciate all your time and effort, and enjoy reading your stuff on NJ.com.
All right. Well, we'll have plenty out there today for everybody to follow, and hope everybody tunes in and takes a look at what we got going, because we're going to kill it again today.
Awesome. Great work. Thanks, Kevin.
All right, Sal. Thanks again.